Welcome back, folks, to the Driver Trainer channel. My name is John. In the last video, we talked about looking far ahead while driving. Today, we're going to talk about staying aware of your surroundings. Now, if you have not yet done so, be sure to like and subscribe and share these videos with as many friends as you can on social media, because we want to get the message out there to as many people as possible. Now, let's get right into it. As you're driving, you want to stay aware of your surroundings. In the last video, we were talking about looking far down ahead and making sure you know what's going on up ahead. You also want to be aware of what's going around you. You want 360 degree of awareness. Now, I know we don't have eyes in the back of our head to see what's going on 100% of the time. I'm sure some of you who are parents are thinking, yeah, I wish I did have eyes in the back of my head. That way I can know what my kids are doing. And yes, I totally agree. And it would be very practical at work, while we're driving, while we're doing chores at home. It would be wonderful to have eyes in the back of our head. It would be wonderful to have 4 arms instead of just 2 arms, so we can do more multitasking. Unfortunately, our bodies are not created that way. Unfortunately, we're not an octopus, and we're not any other creature with multiple eyes from whatever science fiction comic book you may like to read. I'm not sure if there is such a publication out there. The alternative to this is to have our head on a swivel. And that just basically means just checking your mirrors every now and then, which I talked about in the last video, that we want to be checking things every 5 to 8 seconds. And that's going to be my main focal point today on this topic, because the expectation here is we want full awareness. Now, I'm sure there's some of you that have driven Teslas. Some of you may own Teslas. Some of you may have ridden with friends of yours who own Teslas. Now, this isn't exclusive to Tesla. I'm sure there's a few other brands doing the same thing, but I got to ride in a buddy's Tesla Cybertruck just the other day. It was pretty neat how the setup was in his vehicle. Many of you know Teslas have a big touchscreen that's similar size to a computer monitor, and it can display a lot of information regarding the vehicle. You can get visuals on what's around you, what's in front of you, what's ahead. It's very amazing how this works, and I was very impressed to see this, because it would have basically almost like a, not quite a cartoon rendering, but more like a CGI, I would say. I don't know if that's exactly what they call it, but kind of a computer model representation of what it's seeing as far as vehicles, pedestrians, line markings, etc., etc. And it's just really awesome to see. Now, not everybody has that technology. And for those of you who do have that technology, it's not an end-all be-all to be complacent. It's a tool in addition to the driver still using the techniques that I'm going to train in these videos. And this topic is what the AI cameras in this Tesla are doing at all times for the driver. It's the things are looking far ahead, looking nearby, looking around, looking behind, to give the driver a good picture of what's ahead. Now, since not everybody has that technology in their vehicles, we have to do this the old-fashioned way, because driving isn't just forward focused. Awareness is what separates average drivers from skilled drivers. So today we're talking about staying aware of your surroundings. And this is one of the habits that really separate an average driver from someone who's in full control of what's happening around them. So you want to not sit there, because I see this a lot. Somebody will be driving along and their heads are forward like this, and this is all they're doing. Folks, that is not safe. If you're looking ahead, what's going on the right side? What's going on the left? Do you have somebody creeping up along you, ready to run into the side of your vehicle? You want to be able to catch that before it happens. Now, some of you are thinking, well, if somebody's going to do that, what are you going to do? Well, you might be able to slow down and let that person pass you. So let's say if that person is impaired or fell asleep behind the wheel, or maybe had a medical episode and is no longer in control of that vehicle and starts veering off, you want to be able to catch that right away. And that's by rotating your head very often. So that way, when that does happen, you can slow down to hopefully that person is past you, because he's probably not going to be slowing down. He's probably going to stay at the same speed he was. I mean, he might be slowing down gradually, and not by brake power, but just by the fact that he probably doesn't have a lot of foot power going into the accelerator, or he might just have his foot in a slight position if his foot is on the accelerator, just enough to hold power, that he shouldn't be slowing down any faster than you would be slowing down. That way, hopefully, he's past you, and as he drifts, he goes in front of you. No harm, no foul on your end. Or maybe if it's an impaired driver or somebody just not paying attention, hopefully he'll catch the error of his ways and maybe correct himself. And regardless of what happens to that driver, you want to be in a position where you're not involved in whatever issue he is having. You just want to avoid it at all costs. So what does awareness really mean? Quite simple. It just means knowing what's happening in front of you, behind you, and beside you. Not memorizing, because things do change. So we don't just memorize what's going on and go complacent with that, but we want to maintain a general awareness at all times. And the way to do that is you're going to have to constantly update your mental picture of what's going on. Now, here's the thing. You don't need to know every detail, because if you do, you're going to wrap your mind up with so much detail to the point it's going to turn into a distraction. And what we don't want is distracted driving. And that's almost as bad as being distracted with this, when your eyes should be looking on the road. So think of it like building a mental map around your vehicle. Let's look at the zones around your vehicle. We want to look at the front, which is the traffic flow, the brake lights, all the intersections, like we talked about in the last video, and then also in the rear, using that rear view mirror. Your two side mirrors, which are the most important, and the one up on the windshield if you have a vehicle with a rear window, which just about every passenger vehicle and most light trucks have. Now, if you're in a work van, you probably won't have that mirror. With the rear, you want to look at vehicles approaching, especially tailgaters. Now, obviously, you cannot do much about tailgaters other than, here is one trick you can do. Don't brake check them. Don't speed up unless you're driving slow. Then obviously speed up to the posted speed limit, but don't speed up to where you're exceeding the posted speed limit. The best trick is, first off, you should have a proper space cushion. If you already have a space cushion, increase it more. That way, if something happens, you won't have to react with a quicker stop, especially if somebody is this close. And I've seen people so close. Like, you're driving down the expressway, for instance. You're in the right lane. There's somebody in the left lane ahead of you, a little faster, and then the guy behind him wants to go much faster, and he gets to the point where he's so close. We have literally this much space, and I've seen it where they're that close to the point they can read the serial number on their renewal sticker of their registration tag. Why do we do that, folks? Let's not do that. Let's not be driving that close. And if somebody is that close to you, just increase your space cushion. Maybe slow down just slightly, just enough to where you have reaction time. Not to the point that they're going to rear end you. We want to slow down more carefully because we want to avoid that collision. And for some of you that are thinking, if they hit me, go ahead. That's a topic I'm going to be discussing in a later video. We don't want to put ourselves in that situation where we're at risk of getting rear-ended. You also want to be aware of speed differences. Also, the sides of your vehicle. You want to know what's going on in the adjacent lanes. You don't want vehicles pacing you along your side if you can avoid it. Now, there are some situations where traffic is heavy, the congestion is thick, and vehicles obviously are going to be pacing you, not because they want to pace you, but because that's just the natural flow of the traffic. But if the traffic is not that heavy, there should be no reason for anyone to pace you. If that's happening, you want to adjust yourself so you're not boxed in. You also want to be aware of cars entering or exiting lanes, especially on multi-lane roads or even at merge points like in construction zones, on-ramps, off-ramps. You want to be mindful of that. In other words, at any given moment, you should have a general idea of what's going on in these areas, not just one area. Now, this leads me into another point, using your mirrors effectively. And you want to make this a practice and easy to apply. And remember, mirrors are tools. They're not decorations. They're not there because the manufacturer thought, would it look great if the car had these mirrors? In fact, if we had the painted mirrors with the same color as the car, maybe with the aerodynamic design. No, they're there for a reason. We want to be using them. We want to adjust the mirrors so you can see out properly. You should be able to see if you're in, say, the center lane of a roadway. The left mirror should be able to see as much of the left lane as possible. And same with the right mirror. It should see as much of the right lane as possible. And it shouldn't have but just a sliver of your vehicle's body on either mirror. If you're seeing about that much of your vehicle and you can identify all the stains on the rear quarter panel of your car, your mirrors are not out far enough. We want to get those adjusted. So that way we know what's going on, and it also makes it a lot easier when we're making lane changes. Now we want our checks to be quick, consistent checks. We don't want long stares. Hey, what's going on here? Because you do that for a while, what's going on in front of you? Well, we don't know because we're not looking up there. So we don't want to stare in that mirror. We just a little quick, okay. Quick, bring our eyes to the front. And you want to build that as a rhythm. The more you build that as a rhythm, the more natural it will become and the more alert you will be. It will take some practice. The more you do it, the more natural it'll be, and you'll just do it without thinking about it. So view your mirrors as a way to stay connected to everything that you cannot see directly. Because a quick glance will just keep you updated on what's going on at the exact moment. Also, we want to understand blind spots. These are areas your mirrors don't show, because these are the areas where vehicles disappear, especially important during lane changes. So for example, there are areas around your vehicle where another car can be, and you won't see it unless you check for it. So the best thing to do when you're making that lane change, check that mirror, but sometimes you might have to, especially on the right side, because obviously the left mirror, it's right there. You can look at it, it's like literally there, whereas that right mirror is way over there with a console in the middle of your vehicle, or unless you have a bench seat, that seats 3 in the front, and then the passenger side. So your eyes need to travel further. So you may have to lean right over like that and just do it quick. Oh, okay. Some people just need to do a check back like this, and you want to make it quick. Don't sit there and stare out them, because what's going on in front of you while you're doing this, and your eyes aren't going to be able to react that quick if you're looking like this, because you need to turn your head this way, looking ahead to see what's ahead of you. So make sure you make your checks quick. Check, okay, nothing's behind me. We can make that lane change. Make sure it's a quick check. Also, make sure your turn signal is on before you start the process. In fact, I see a lot of people who flip the turn signal on, start moving over. You're legally required to have the turn signal on for a minimum of 2 seconds before you start lane changing. And we'll talk about that in a later video on using signals, but make sure that turn signal's on for 2 seconds before you start moving that vehicle over. And you leave that on until your vehicle is over 100%. And lane changes shouldn't be like it's 1.1 second to get that vehicle over. That's too quick, and that's a recipe for rollover collisions. And we'll talk about that later on down the road. So take 5 to 7 seconds to move the vehicle over gradually, then cancel the turn signal, and you'll be on the safe side knowing that you're not going to put yourself at risk of a rollover collision. Why does awareness matter? Here are the key problems when awareness is low, when you're not aware of what's going on around you. Why does awareness matter? Here's the key problems when drivers have low awareness or they're not paying attention to what's going on. They tend to have unsafe lane changes. They get cut off unexpectedly. Well, I didn't see that coming. Well, if you were paying attention, you probably would see it. If you're checking your mirrors, you'll be surprised how much of that you would catch. Just putting the head swivel mentality into practice, just checking your mirrors, you'll be surprised what you catch. Also, being surprised by fast approaching vehicles. That's something you'd catch just checking your mirror. You can, and I catch that all the time. I look in my mirror and, like I talked about earlier, you get those people who approach real quick. You want to be aware of that. Not that you can control their actions, but you want in your mind that somebody is approaching you quick. That way you are ready in case something were to happen. Also, people with low awareness, they tend to overreact due to lack of the information, which is also a lack of timing. So most close calls don't just come out of nowhere. They come from just not knowing what was already happening around you. And that's why it's very important to know what's going around you at all times. That's why we want 360-degree awareness. Now, I also want to talk about reading other drivers. I know this can be a challenge for some people, and there are other people that are real good at reading people. I'm not one to read people in everyday things, but usually when it comes to driving, that's a skill I've had to build over the years. And that's a skill anyone can build. And most of reading people just comes from driving experience and years of driving. The more you drive, the more you start to figure things out to the point that the unexpected suddenly just becomes expected. Because basically, those of us who've been driving long enough have been there, done that. Now, obviously, when we started driving, we were new to the game, and a lot of these were surprises. A lot of these were new. Like, wow, people do this? If you're a young driver, inexperienced driver, especially if you're a teenager, you're going to be in that position. And what I want to do is help you build that bank of data in your head so that way you can actually pick up on this stuff sooner. And by reading people, you'll be able to watch behavior, not just position, predict what others might do. And let me give you some examples. Car drifting in the lane. Now, obviously, we may have drifts here and there, but usually somebody who's alert will correct that pretty quick. So if you see a little drifting and it goes away and it stays straight, that's random. If it's drifting constantly, then we might have a little problem, unless the wind is blowing. Or the late turn signal. And we've seen this all the time where the guy slows down like, okay, what is going on? Why? Get off the brake pedal, dude. And then just like 10 feet before an intersection, here comes the turn signal. And then slows down and suddenly turns. And you're like, what in the world are you doing? And we want to watch out for that. Also, a driver slowing down without reason. So the speed limit is 40 miles an hour, hypothetically. All of a sudden, we're just doing 25 miles an hour, and you're like, come on, dude. And I'm sure everybody's thinking, yeah, I've been in that position before. So we just want to watch out for that and make sure we adjust our speed accordingly and make sure we have a proper space gap accordingly. Or aggressive or impatient drivers. Now, I'm not talking about the driver that gets upset behind the wheel. I mean, yeah, a lot of people do that. I mean, we still want to be mindful of them, but the ones I'm talking about are the ones that get aggressive to the point that they start driving erratically, or they may engage in direct road rage, meaning the illegal kind, where they start making threats to other drivers. We don't want to engage people like that if all possible. We want to be aware of drivers like that. So it's not just about where vehicles are, it's what they're about to do. We want to predict that before anything happens. Then also keeping your awareness updated, because awareness isn't a one-time check. That's why our heads need to be on a swivel. I mean, not like this, but checking mirror, check the mirror, looking ahead, looking far ahead, looking at the speedometer, rotating your head, doing mirror checks basically every 5 to 8 seconds. So we know what's going on, because traffic always changes. Just because you might be sharing the road with one guy does not mean you're going to be sharing the road with one guy for the next 5 seconds. In 5 seconds, 12 people can all of a sudden come out of nowhere. So you want to be aware of that, because they didn't just come out of nowhere. They only came out of nowhere if your head's not on a swivel. They came from somewhere, and we would know that somewhere if we're checking, because then we know, okay, yeah, he just merged, he came from behind, so on and so forth. So we want to be aware of that. And you want to keep refreshing your mental picture, so that way you're prepared for whatever comes next. Because what was safe 5 seconds ago might not be safe right now. You want to constantly update what's going on around you. Now, let's talk about real driving situations. City driving. You have more movement, more unpredictability. You have a lot of pedestrians, like we talked about in the last video. Pedestrians, intersections, turning vehicles. And then highway, you have higher speeds, faster changes in spacing because of the higher speed. Or how about parking lots, where you have tighter spaces and people in cars moving in all directions, especially at the local grocery store. You back out of the parking spot, you want to know what's going on around you, especially if kids are running loose from their parents. You want to be aware of that. In fact, if you have a car with a backup camera, that would be great. That's a great tool to use, but don't rely on it as the only way to back up. If you don't have one, I would advise getting one for your vehicle. If you're at a parking lot where you have the two spaces together where people park nose to nose, if you can, I would prefer being that driver that finds the spot that's open both ends and pull ahead to that other spot. That way your nose is sticking out. So when you go to leave, you go straight out. Because here's the thing about backing. Backing should be done as little as possible. That way you don't have to worry about what's around you. If you do need to back, I try to back as straight as possible. Now, not all the time you can back up straight. You may have to turn, and you want to be careful with what direction you're turning into, and you still need to look at what's ahead on your front side if you're backing to your right, coming out, or if you're coming out this way to your left, you want to know what's going on your right side. Because what if another vehicle pulls up? Or what if pedestrians show up all of a sudden? You want to be aware of that, so that way you don't have an incident. Now, how can we practice these skills? Ask yourself, what's behind me? What's beside me? Use your mirrors consistently. Notice patterns in traffic. And the goal here is to make awareness automatic, not something you need to think about. You want that to be automatic and natural in your mind. And it's going to take a little bit to build that, but it'll come and you'll get so used to it that that's what you naturally do. Here's my key takeaway for everybody today. Awareness is control. The more you know about what's happening around you, the more control you have over what happens next. When you combine all this with looking ahead, you start to see the full picture. In the next video, we're going to talk about keeping your vision active. So make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, and make sure you share these videos with as many people as you can. So we'll see you on the next video. Take care and be safe out there.